Rex was no stranger to heartbreak, but nothing compared to the moment he watched his owners, Robert and Hannah, drive up the long gravel path with a wriggling bundle of golden fur in the passenger seat. Through the chain-link fence of the shelter where he'd been abandoned only days before, Rex stood motionless, ears drooping and eyes filling with an unspeakable sorrow. He recognized their familiar laughter on the wind, recognized the truck's rumbling engine, recognized the faint smell of home riding on the breeze, but it was not him they were coming for. Another dog hopped out, tail wagging happily, as Robert and Hannah welcomed it with open arms. Behind the fence, Rex's heart pounded with a storm of bewilderment and loss. No one looked his way. No one spoke his name. He sank into the grass, the world he once knew crashing down around him. Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from in the comments. We'd love to know. And if you enjoy emotional, powerful stories like this one, make sure to subscribe and turn on the bell so you never miss a moment. Let's dive into it. The Pinecrest Animal Shelter sat at the edge of a sprawling forest in northern Vermont, just a short drive from a picturesque town that thrived on maple sugaring and artisan crafts. Its modest exterior belied the warmth inside, a handful of dedicated volunteers who treated every rescued animal with unwavering care. A wide, unpaved road veered off the highway, leading to a one-story building surrounded by large outdoor kennels. The shelter's caretaker, a middle-aged woman named Donna, prided herself on keeping the place as cheerful as possible despite the often heartbreaking circumstances. Rex arrived at Pinecrest 3 days ago, wet and trembling in the aftermath of a hard autumn rain. A man who lived nearby had spotted a German shepherd sitting alone by the roadside as dusk came on. Rex had been drenched, caked in mud, and the hungry look in his eyes spoke volumes to the kindly passer-by. Donna took Rex in without question, and in the small exam room, she discovered he had no major injuries, only a few scrapes and bruises, likely from jumping out of a vehicle, or perhaps tumbling on rough terrain. It wasn't uncommon for dogs to be abandoned in secluded regions of the forest, but something about Rex felt different to Donna. He carried himself with a subdued dignity, as though he'd once been deeply loved and cared for. Even so, she couldn't help but wonder why anyone would leave such a noble dog behind. The day Rex recognized Robert and Hannah was the day everything changed. He had been resting in an outdoor run, muzzle on his paws, enjoying a rare moment of quiet. The moment he heard the grinding of truck tires on gravel, his ears had perked up. A flicker of joy, a glimmer of hope, and then betrayal shattered him. That fleeting second when the new dog, an excitable golden retriever pup, jumped out, bounding toward Robert and Hannah, haunted Rex's every breath. The staff at Pinecrest noted his sudden change in demeanor. His gaze hollowed out, shoulders drooped lower. Rex barely ate his evening meal. Donna tried offering him treats and speaking softly in a consoling tone. But how could she, or anyone, truly reach across the chasm of pain that came from seeing the only family he'd known replace him? Late that evening, after everyone else had left, Donna sat on a stool outside Rex's kennel. "You're a beautiful boy," she said, voice hushed. "I know it hurts. It's gonna hurt for a while, but we'll find you a new family, one who'll treat you right, I promise." Rex slowly lifted his head. His dark brown eyes caught the glow of the overhead lamp. For a moment, his ears, once proud and pointed, tilted forward in a sign of recognition, or maybe just a momentary curiosity. Donna reached a gentle hand through the kennel door's grating. Rex sniffed it tentatively. Then, as though remembering the day's trauma, he withdrew again, laying his muzzle on his paws with a weary sigh. The next day, rumors filtered in of a looming storm that might hit the remote valley where Pinecrest was located. Late autumn storms in Vermont could be unpredictable, bringing early snowfall or torrential rain. The staff prepared as usual, stocking up on supplies, ensuring extra blankets were available, and bracing for a potential influx of lost or injured animals. For Pinecrest, these storms always brought a surge of calls from concerned citizens or from people whose fences got blown over, letting pets run astray. Meanwhile, Rex's heartbreak was still so raw that he seemed unwilling to connect with anyone. Although physically healthy, he refused to engage in play. His appetite waned. Even staff members who excelled at winning the trust of scared animals struggled to coax him into any sign of enthusiasm. Still, Donna refused to give up on him. She'd seen animals recover from deep emotional wounds before. Some took days, others months, even years. But something about Rex's eyes made her feel the stakes were higher this time. He had a fierce intelligence behind that soulful gaze, a consciousness that understood betrayal on a human level. Life in the shelter went on. Over the next few days, as the wind picked up and the temperature dropped, a sense of anticipation filled the air. A small group of volunteers, Jess, Franklin, and Amy, arrived daily to care for the animals, cleaning the kennels, feeding them, exercising them in the fenced yard, and tending to the seemingly endless administrative tasks. Donna kept the phone lines open, bracing for the storm. Rex observed all this quietly. One chilly afternoon, Franklin tried to take Rex for a short walk. The German Shepherd followed along, but there was no spring in his step. They passed the old oak tree that stood near the corner of the shelter's property, its leaves turning golden and drifting to the ground. Nearby, a trickle of a stream could be heard gurgling as it wound its way through the forest. Rex paused a few times, sniffing the air as though searching for something or someone. Then he hung his head, tail low, and carried on. When they returned to the kennel, Franklin gave Rex an encouraging pat on the side. "You're a good dog," he said simply. Rex's ears twitched, but he walked into his run and curled up in the corner, ignoring the half-full bowl of kibble. That night, the sky unleashed its fury. Rain hammered the metal roof, thunder rattled the windows, and lightning streaked across the horizon. The forest behind the shelter whipped and cracked in the wind. Donna, who lived on the property in a small cottage, checked on the animals several times. During one such late-night round, she stopped at Rex's kennel. He lay alert, watching the storm. His body stiffened with each crash of thunder, though he never trembled from fear. Instead, he looked as though some inner storm was raging behind his eyes. Perhaps memories of the day Robert and Hannah drove away, or earlier days when he'd still belonged to them and storms were faced together in the safety of a warm home. Donna quietly unlocked the kennel gate, slipped inside, and sat by him on the cold cement floor. She let the silence fill the space for a moment. Then, over the thunder's distant growl, she whispered, "It's okay to hurt, but it's also okay to hope." Rex blinked, slowly lowering his head onto his paws. Outside, the wind howled. Somehow, Donna's presence reminded him that not all people abandon those they once cared for. When the dawn broke, still gray and torrential, a call came through to the shelter. A man's worried voice crackled on the line, drowned by the backdrop of the storm. "Help," he said. "My neighbor's trees fell across the road. My dog's run off. I can't find him. Can you help me track him down? I heard you have a dog that might be good at searching." Donna frowned. The request was unusual. Pinecrest wasn't a search and rescue operation. Yet the man's desperation touched her. She thought briefly of Rex. He was a German Shepherd, known for intelligence and protective instincts. But he was also heartbroken, withdrawn. Still, if there was a chance for Rex to do something purposeful. She told the man they would do what they could. If the storm abated and the road cleared enough for vehicles, they would help. But at that moment, the shelter was partially isolated. The main road was blocked by debris and mudslides in at least 2 spots. There was no telling when the county's maintenance crews would arrive. For Rex, the day passed in the same solitude. The conflict that had begun in his heart was nowhere near resolution. He wasn't ready to trust again. But events were stirring, bigger forces were in motion, and soon Rex would have no choice but to confront his deepest fears. 2 days after the worst of the storm, the rain eased to a persistent drizzle. The phone at Pinecrest rang more frequently. Missing pet reports, tips about stray animals wandering near highways, and general updates about road closures and downed power lines. The staff worked tirelessly, but Rex continued to remain aloof. Donna worried that without a breakthrough, he might slip deeper into despair. During a midday lull in phone calls, Jess, one of the younger volunteers, approached Donna with an anxious look. "There's someone here to see Rex," she said, glancing over her shoulder. They claim to be his owners." Donna's heart skipped a beat. She walked out to the main office. There, standing with soaked jackets and muddy boots, were Robert and Hannah. Immediately, Donna's defenses rose. She'd been the one to examine Rex when he first arrived. She had a strong suspicion these were indeed the people who had abandoned him, but the law required her to handle the situation formally. "Good afternoon," she said evenly, controlling the edge in her voice. "I'm Donna, the caretaker here. How can we help you?" Hannah pulled off her hood, dripping water everywhere. She clutched a small pink leash in one hand. "We're here for our dog," she said, voice trembling slightly. "We were traveling out of state. Rex ran off when we stopped for gas. We've been searching for days." It took all of Donna's restraint not to challenge the story. The pang in her heart told her it was a lie. They must have intentionally abandoned Rex, but she forced herself to remain neutral. "Well, Rex has been here for about a week now. No one claimed him. We did our diligence, posted on local lost pet boards, informed the police. Are you absolutely certain he is your dog?" Robert nodded vigorously. "Yes, of course. We live over in Montpelier, but come to these parts for camping. We didn't know where he'd gone. We only just saw the post about a found German shepherd this morning." Donna considered them carefully. Rex had recognized them. That was undeniable. But she had no concrete proof of malicious abandonment, just her gut feeling and the heartbreak in Rex's eyes. "You realize," Donna said cautiously, "there's an adoption fee for strays that remain unclaimed after 72 hours. There's also licensing paperwork to ensure we're returning him to the rightful owner." She paused, letting her words settle. "And I'll need some proof of ownership." Hannah nodded, pulling out her phone to show photos of Rex. Indeed, there he was, slightly younger, bounding happily in the yard with Hannah, or wearing a bandana with Robert. That settled the legal question. They could prove he belonged to them. Donna's mind raced. If these people had truly abandoned Rex, he was about to be returned to a home where he wasn't wanted. Would he just wind up back in the shelter? Or worse? "Of course," Robert said. "We'll pay any fees, sign any documents. We want him back." Donna forced a tight smile, stepping back to compile the necessary forms. Meanwhile, Hannah and Robert glanced around uneasily at the other animals in crates and kennels. More than once, Hannah flinched at the barking of a scared terrier in the corner. Robert avoided eye contact with the staff, preferring to scroll on his phone. There was a tension in the air, an unspoken truth they carefully avoided. They didn't truly want Rex. Yet, here they were. Donna took them out to see Rex. The shepherd stood in his kennel, ears alert. The moment he saw them, his reaction was nothing like the joyous tail wags most dogs would display upon reuniting with loved ones. Instead, Rex's posture stiffened, His ears flattened back, and he let out a low, uncertain whine. It wasn't aggression, it was heartbreak. A flash of guilt crossed Hannah's face. Robert cleared his throat. "Hey there, buddy," he said awkwardly. "Missed you." Rex stayed rooted to the concrete, eyes flicking between them and the exit. It was as if some part of him hoped they had come to say sorry, to redeem themselves. But another part, the wiser part, seemed to brace for more hurt. Despite her misgivings, Donna knew the law. They had to return Rex if these were his verifiable owners. Quickly, she asked them to fill out the final forms. While the couple completed paperwork, she went to retrieve Rex's meager belongings, a collar the shelter had provided, and some leftover kibble. She saw his confusion, the resignation in his eyes. It tore at her heart, but she felt powerless under the regulations. Yet, as Robert and Hannah led Rex out toward their truck, an unexpected call came in on Donna's cell. She answered, hearing the frantic voice of a local ranger, Marty. He wasted no time. "Is that big German shepherd still at your shelter?" "Pinecrest is the closest place. We need him. There's a child missing in the woods. Someone said your dog might be able to track." "Marty, we're not a trained search team," Donna said, voice trembling with concern and adrenaline. "I don't think Rex is up for it." But Marty insisted. "Search and rescue teams are hours away. Roads are down. We've got a huge forest area to cover and a storm system still overhead. Time is of the essence. The child's only 10 years old." Donna's hand tightened around the phone. If there was even a chance. German shepherds often had a natural instinct for search work, especially if they were well bonded to a handler. But Rex's bond was shattered. Still, this was an emergency that might save a life. She glanced out the window to see Robert trying to coax Rex into the truck, the German shepherd sniffing the seat warily. The entire staff's eyes shifted between Donna, the phone, and the departing owners. The tension was palpable. Finally, Donna made a split-second decision. She hurried out the front door, calling after Robert and Hannah. "There's a missing child in the forest," she said. "Local authorities are asking if Rex can help search. German shepherds have strong tracking instincts. Would you help us? Just for a few hours." For a moment, Robert and Hannah stared, uncertain. Then Robert shrugged. "I don't know. We were planning to head home, actually." The moral crisis was clear. A child's life might be in danger, and the dog they'd replaced with a younger pup was being requested to help. Hannah hesitated, looking at Rex, then at Robert. "Maybe we should," she said softly. "It wouldn't take too long, right?" Robert glanced skyward at the dark, ominous clouds. "Fine," he said after a moment's pause, "but no promises. We'll try." He looked down at Rex, who regarded him with an unreadable expression. Donna nodded hurriedly, relief flooding her. She hung up with Marty, quickly explaining the plan to the staff. "Ranger station is about 4 miles down the road. Someone from the volunteer group can guide you. They'll pair you with a local search crew." She gave them the address and instructions for the best route, carefully avoiding the washed-out roads. Robert muttered under his breath, something about the inconvenience. Hannah was more subdued. "We'll go," she said firmly, "at least to see if Rex can do anything." With that, they loaded up Rex, who sat in the back seat. The truck's tires crunched on gravel, leaving Pinecrest behind. Donna watched them go with a silent plea that the storm would hold back a little longer, that Rex's heartbreak wouldn't stop him from lending a paw. As Robert drove them deeper into the forest, the wind rattled tree branches overhead. The route was pocked with potholes filled with murky water. Occasionally they had to stop and clear a fallen limb from the road. Tension built with each passing mile. In the truck, Hannah turned to look at Rex. "It's okay," she said softly. We're just going to help. Then we'll go home." Rex didn't respond, of course, but his eyes flickered with something, perhaps the canine equivalent of determination, or maybe just confusion. The shadows of the pine trees stretched across the windshield as they neared the ranger station, an old wooden building set atop a small rise. Several vehicles were parked out front: the local sheriff's truck, an EMS van, and a couple of cars from volunteers who had joined the search. The moment Robert and Hannah stepped out with Rex, a tall, broad-shouldered ranger with a short gray beard marched up. "You the folks from Pinecrest?" he asked brusquely. "I'm Marty. This the dog?" Robert nodded. "This is Rex. We're not, sure how well he tracks." Marty looked at Rex appraisingly. "We'll have to try. We've got multiple teams combing the trails. The boy, Timmy, wandered off last night from a campsite. His parents realized he was missing this morning when they woke up. Search has been on for hours now. We've got storms heading back in soon." Anxiety crackled in the air as Marty led them to a clearing near the ranger station, where about a dozen volunteers waited. Among them was Timmy's distraught mother, tear-streaked face half hidden beneath a raincoat hood. She clutched a small shoe in one hand, presumably Timmy's. Marty introduced the group quickly. "This is the boy's mother, Mary, and father, Jim. They found these footprints leading deeper into the woods." He motioned to a map pinned to the side of his Jeep. "But the tracks got washed out by rain. We need a dog's nose to pick up the scent." Mary knelt down, holding the child's shoe out toward Rex. Tears welled in her eyes. "Please," she whispered. "Please find my son." Rex's ears perked up. He sniffed the shoe, nose crinkling at the unfamiliar scent. There was a flicker of recollection in him. He had once known how to track, from rudimentary training Robert and Hannah had done when he was young, or maybe it was just the innate drive of a shepherd to help. He glanced at Mary and let out a low, gentle whine, as if acknowledging her pain. Robert, somewhat awkwardly, patted Rex's flank. "All right, boy. Go on, get the scent. Find Timmy." For the first time in days, Rex's posture straightened, his ears lifted. A spark lit behind his eyes. He gazed into the dark line of trees ahead, sniffing the air for the boy's scent. The search teams parted, giving them space. Marty gestured. "We'll go in pairs. Robert, if you can handle your dog, great. If not, I'm sure I can." Hannah looked uneasy, but Robert nodded. "I can handle him," he said, voice cracking slightly. Perhaps some vestige of pride surfaced within him. Once upon a time, Robert had loved teaching Rex to fetch, to obey commands, to run alongside him on hikes. That memory seemed to stir. And so they began. Rex led, sniffing at the undergrowth, pausing at fallen branches, weaving through the dense pines. The group trudged behind, stepping over slick roots and muddy patches. The air felt heavy with the aftermath of the storm, pungent with wet leaves and decay. Overhead, the sky was an endless gray quilt. All the while, Robert and Hannah stayed close. They stumbled on occasion, and a few times, Rex tugged eagerly forward, only to lose the scent again, turning in circles in frustration. The deeper they went, the more foreboding the forest became. A hush fell over everything, broken only by the drip of water from leaves and the distant calls of other search parties. Hours passed. Each time Rex caught a whiff of something, they hurried to follow. The ground was a tangle of ferns and thorny bushes, and the searchers had to push aside low-hanging branches or step around newly formed streams from the recent rain. Morale dipped as the day grew darker, the watery sunlight fading behind thickening clouds. Finally, near a small ravine where a creek rushed with storm runoff, Rex's ears shot up. He sniffed the air with renewed urgency, then barked, a single echoing sound that made Hannah jump. "He's got something," Robert announced in a tense whisper. Marty nodded, moving forward carefully. All right, let's see. Rex darted down the ravine, nails scratching on slippery rocks. Robert nearly lost his footing trying to keep up, while Hannah struggled behind them. At the bottom, where the water pooled before cascading over a small ledge, a bright red object lay half-submerged. Rex nosed it, whining. Marty reached down and lifted it out, revealing a child's jacket. The name Timmy was stitched on a small label inside the collar. A wave of alarm rippled through the group. "He might be close," Marty said, voice tense. The worry in his eyes was unmistakable. Rex sniffed the jacket again, let out another short bark, and scrambled up the other side of the ravine. The water in the creek sloshed around the searchers' boots, soaking pants and socks. But the adrenaline pushed them onward. If Timmy was injured or unconscious out here, time was running out. Another wave of storms could hamper any rescue. As they pressed forward, thunder rumbled in the distance. The wind picked up, shaking branches overhead. Fat droplets of rain spattered the leaves. The forest grew darker, the path slippery and uneven. Rex stopped occasionally, testing the air, then moved on. In the hush of the descending evening, everyone's thoughts mirrored the gloom. Had they come too late? Hannah, panting from exertion, found herself beside Robert. Do you think we'll find him?" she gasped. Robert didn't answer, but his face revealed a swirl of emotions. Maybe guilt, maybe regret for the day they'd chosen to abandon Rex. He had, after all, done so thoughtlessly, buying a new puppy because that puppy was easier or more fashionable. Now, seeing Rex in this heroic role, leading them to a lost child, filled him with conflicting emotions. He'd hoped never to see Rex again, yet here he was, depending on him for something that might be beyond all their capacities. Then, high above, lightning seared across the sky. The flash illuminated the forest in stark white, followed by a crack of thunder that seemed to shake the earth. Rex barked again, picking up speed. Robert struggled to keep hold of the leash. "Rex, slow down," he called. But the dog was determined, bounding over roots and logs. The group hurried after him. The rain now fell with an angry hiss, plastering hair and clothing to their skin. Marty shouted directions, trying to keep them all from getting lost. Eventually, they noticed footprints, small and unsteady, along a muddied patch of ground. Mary, Timmy's mother, who'd insisted on joining the search, broke into tears when she saw them. "That's his shoe size," she cried. Rex paused at the edge of a thick grove of pine trees, barked again, and pushed through the branches. The needles scratched at the searcher's arms, and the swirling wind carried the sharp scent of pine sap. A few feet in, they found a small clearing, and there, slumped against a mossy log, was Timmy, pale, soaked, eyes closed. A collective gasp rose from the group. Mary rushed forward. Timmy's father, Jim, dropped to his knees beside him, feeling for a pulse, pressing an ear to the boy's chest. "He's breathing," Jim whispered, voice cracking. Timmy stirred faintly, opening one bleary eye before closing it again. Marty radioed for an EMS team to converge on their location. The volunteers huddled around the boy, trying to shield him from the pouring rain. Rex stood beside them, tail low, sniffing Timmy's face. With a small groan, Timmy's eyes fluttered open for a second. "Dog," he whispered, voice weak. Tears of relief and gratitude streamed down Mary's face as she clutched her son. "He's alive," she choked out. "Thank you, God, and thank you, Rex." Robert and Hannah stood a short distance away, their expressions a mixture of shock, awe, and something deeper. Neither spoke. They watched as Timmy's limp form was carefully lifted, blankets draped over him, the volunteer medics rushing to check vitals. The moment was both triumphant and fragile. The storm battered them all, but in the center of this ordeal stood a loyal German shepherd who'd saved a life. The rescue of Timmy changed everything. Amid the chaos, rejoicing parents, the bustle of the EMS team, Marty's firm instructions to get everyone out of the forest safely, Rex had emerged as a hero. As the group carefully made their way back through the wind and rain, Timmy carried on a makeshift stretcher. The boy's mother and father hovered protectively, murmuring thanks to everyone, but especially to Rex. By the time they reached the ranger station, night had closed in fully. Emergency vehicles with flashing lights filled the muddy parking area, while volunteers huddled under any shelter they could find, warming themselves with coffee and blankets. Timmy was whisked inside, where medics continued to treat his minor hypothermia and cuts. His mother, still trembling, embraced Rex despite the mud and the rain. "I can never repay you," she whispered, tears mixing with rainwater on her cheeks. Rex accepted her touch with a gentle gaze, tail wagging faintly. The staff from Pinecrest who had come with Donna arrived soon after, having followed the directions to the station once the roads partially cleared. When Donna stepped out of her Jeep and spotted Rex with Timmy's mother, she felt a rush of pride and relief so strong she nearly wept on the spot. She spotted Robert and Hannah standing to the side, looking uncertain. Part of them seemed moved by Rex's heroic deed, yet they also bore the weight of their own guilt. Robert's eyes caught Donna's, and for a split second, she thought she saw tears in his eyes. Then he looked away, jaw set tightly. The next few hours were a haze of paperwork, statements, and tearful gratitude. Timmy was eventually loaded into an ambulance to be taken to the nearest hospital for a thorough checkup. The storm battered the ranger station roof, lightning illuminating the windows. Through it all, Rex lay quietly in a dry corner, eyes half closed, as though exhausted by the day's emotional turmoil. When the time came for the volunteers to leave, Donna approached Robert and Hannah. "I have to be honest," she began softly. "Rex didn't deserve what happened. I don't know your reasons, but please, I beg you, if you're going to take him back, treat him right." Robert shifted uncomfortably. Hannah, tears brimming, murmured, We were going through some problems. We thought he'd be happier somewhere else. But now," she trailed off, glancing at Rex, who had lifted his head at the sound of their voices. The moral weight of the day pressed on them. For a moment, Donna had a faint hope that this harrowing experience might spur Robert and Hannah to realize what a treasure they had in Rex. But then Robert spoke, voice low and conflicted. "We already got another dog," he said plainly, regret tinging his tone. "We didn't think we'd see Rex again." Silence settled over them, broken only by the drumming of rain on the roof. Donna sighed. "Look," she said softly, "maybe we should talk about rehoming him. If you're not prepared to give him what he needs, you can sign a transfer of ownership to Pinecrest. We'll find him the home he deserves." She expected some token protest, but Robert simply nodded, looking away. "Yeah, maybe that's best," he said. Hannah sniffled, reaching into her jacket for tissues. They stood together like two guilty souls, overshadowed by the dog they had betrayed. Before finalizing anything, the local sheriff asked to speak to them briefly, wanting an account of how Rex had helped. Robert recounted the search effort with the monotone voice of someone trying to mask shame. Hannah stumbled through a few sentences, praising Rex. The sheriff, not privy to the full backstory, simply commended them on having such a well-trained animal. Finally, as the night wore on, everyone prepared to disperse. A heavy hush enveloped the muddy parking lot. Robert and Hannah looked at Rex, tears threatening to spill from Hannah's eyes. "Thank you," she said, voice trembling, "for everything. We're "We're sorry, Rex." And then, in the presence of the sheriff, Donna, and the volunteer staff, Robert signed the papers, relinquishing ownership. Hannah kissed Rex softly on the muzzle, tears slipping down her cheeks. Then, without further ceremony, the couple climbed into their truck and drove away through the darkness. Rex stood in the glow of the ranger station's porch light, watching the only family he'd ever known vanish once again. But this time, there was no gate between them, no moment of confusion. The heartbreak was there, yes, but there was also a strange sense of finality, a chapter closing. Donna knelt beside Rex, placing a gentle hand on his back. "You're coming with me," she whispered. "Let's get you to a home that will never abandon you." Over the following days, the storm continued to lash the region, causing minor flooding in low-lying areas. But for Rex, the worst storm was internal, and perhaps it had begun to pass. He was back at Pinecrest, but now, with a renewed sense of belonging. The staff treated him like the hero he was, telling anyone who would listen about how he'd helped save a child's life. The story circulated among the locals, and soon, calls came pouring in. Families interested in adopting the brave German shepherd who had tracked a lost boy through the storm. Yet, despite the interest, Donna was selective. She knew Rex's trust had been deeply shattered. He needed a patient, compassionate home. Over the course of 2 weeks, prospective adopters visited, some with big smiles and bigger promises, but Rex remained guarded. He sat in the visitors' area with them, looking on politely yet warily. One day, a retired firefighter named Lucas came by with his teenage daughter, Bailey. Lucas was tall, with kind eyes and an air of quiet confidence. Bailey, a willowy girl with a gentle smile, approached Rex slowly, letting him sniff her hand. She'd brought a squeaky toy, which she offered to him, not thrusting it in his face, but merely setting it on the floor. Rex eyed it. Then, after a brief hesitation, he stepped forward and picked it up in his jaws. The spark in his eyes returned, just for a moment, as the toy squeaked. Bailey giggled. "He's so handsome," she said, scratching behind Rex's ears. Rex responded by leaning into her touch, tail giving a faint wag. Donna watched from a short distance, heart fluttering. Could this be the family Rex needed? Lucas crouched down, meeting Rex's gaze. "I used to work with a K9 unit in my department," he said quietly. "I've seen dogs like you do amazing things." A soft whine escaped Rex's throat, as though acknowledging the man's words. Something about Lucas's tone, or the sincerity in his eyes, seemed to draw Rex in. Then, surprising everyone, Rex pressed his muzzle against Lucas's shoulder in a gesture of trust. Donna felt tears welling up. This was the first time she'd seen Rex choose to connect with someone unbidden. They talked for over an hour, discussing Rex's history, the heartbreak he'd been through, the heroic rescue. Lucas explained he had a house on the outskirts of town, with a spacious backyard. Bailey mentioned she was home from school by mid-afternoon, eager to spend time with a dog who needed love. Together, they painted a picture of a warm, stable environment where Rex might finally heal and thrive. That evening, after the shelter closed, Donna reviewed the application Lucas had submitted. Everything checked out. He had a stellar record of caring for animals, had excellent references from local vets, and his schedule allowed for plenty of time to bond with Rex. Carefully, she made the decision to move forward with the adoption. The next day, Lucas and Bailey returned, excitement glowing on their faces. Donna prepared the final documents, and soon the moment arrived. Lucas signed the adoption papers. Rex was officially part of their family. The staff gathered to wish him well, tears and smiles all around. They gave Rex a red bandana embroidered with Pinecrest Hero as a farewell gift. He wore it proudly, tail gently wagging. Less than a month after Rex moved into Lucas's home, another unexpected twist arrived in the small town of Pinecrest. A freak accident occurred along a remote stretch of highway that meandered around the base of the mountains. The culprit was a landslide triggered by the heavy rains that had plagued the region. Several cars were trapped, some with passengers injured. Lucas, being a retired firefighter, jumped into action when the news broke. He loaded supplies, ropes, medical kits, a crowbar, into his truck. Bailey, wanting to help, insisted on coming, but Lucas hesitated. "It might be dangerous," he warned, tightening his grip on the steering wheel. "I know first aid," Bailey argued, "and I can help with the dogs or children who might be scared." Her eyes flicked to Rex, who stood by the truck's open door, ears perked. Lucas sighed. "Okay, but you stay close to me." They set out along the winding roads, water still streaming down the mountainsides. Rex peered out the window, nose twitching at the dense sense of soil and rain in the air. The memory of the rescue mission with Timmy still fresh in his mind, he seemed anxious to serve. When they arrived at the scene, it was chaos. Part of the highway had collapsed into a gully, taking 2 cars with it. Another car teetered on the edge, dangerously close to sliding down. Firefighters and rescue workers from the next county over were on site, but they were stretched thin. Lucas parked on a safe patch of ground and quickly identified the triage area, a cluster of anxious bystanders, some of them battered or bruised, huddled under tarps. The sound of crashing rocks and trickling earth filled the air. Bailey stayed near the truck with Rex, while Lucas hurried to speak to one of the firefighters. He recognized an old colleague, Dave, who filled him in. "The worst part is that one car slid about 50 feet down, pinned against some trees. A mother and her kids are inside. We can't get a vehicle down there, and it's too risky to lower people on ropes until we stabilize the slope." Lucas's eyes narrowed. "How many inside?" "3, Dave replied. "We heard them honking for help earlier, but now we can't hear anything. The slope's still giving way." The tension in the air was palpable. Rain had started to fall again, turning the earth to a slick muck. Bailey approached cautiously with Rex, who immediately picked up on the sense of urgency. "Dad, what can we do?" she asked, scanning the scene. Lucas thought for a moment. They needed a plan, something bold yet safe enough to avoid further tragedy. He eyed the rope lines the firefighters had set up around the precarious ledge. Then his gaze fell on Rex. "I have an idea," he murmured, recalling how Rex had tracked Timmy through a dangerous forest. "If the dog can navigate the slope, maybe he can carry a line or something to the car." Dave arched an eyebrow. "A dog? Risky, but we're out of time. The slope could give way any minute. If we can get a line to them, maybe they can secure themselves, or at least let us know their condition." Bailey looked nervously at her father. "Rex could get hurt," she said softly. Lucas knelt, putting a hand on Rex's neck. "You up for this, boy?" he asked. Rex gazed at him, ears forward, as though understanding the challenge. There was no hesitation in his posture, only a calm readiness. Working quickly, Lucas fashioned a harness for Rex out of sturdy straps, ensuring the dog wouldn't be choked if he slipped. He attached a rope to this harness. Meanwhile, Bailey retrieved a small first aid pouch, lightweight enough for Rex to carry in a side pouch attached to his harness. Inside were bandages, gauze, and a flashlight. If the family was injured and conscious, they could at least do some initial care or signal for help. The plan was simple, yet fraught with risks. Lucas and another firefighter, harnessed to a thicker safety line, would guide Rex partway down the slope. When it became too unstable for both men to continue, they would anchor themselves to a sturdy tree. Rex would go on alone, the rope spool trailing behind him to reach the vehicle. If it all worked out, the family could use the rope for partial support, and rescue crews could know exactly where they were. Perhaps they'd even coax the children out if the slope stabilized enough. As they approached the edge, the sight was harrowing. The road's remains sloped into a gaping chasm of mud and broken asphalt. Debris continued to slide at intervals, and the sound of distant thunder rattled the air. A twisted guardrail lay half-buried. They could barely make out the top of the car, its frame crushed against a cluster of trees. Bailey stood at a safe distance, hands clasped, heart pounding. "Be careful," she called. Lucas and the firefighter Mike inched down. The mud sucked at their boots, threatening to yank them off balance. Rex followed, each careful step sinking into the slick terrain. They slid a few times, hearts pounding, until they reached a thick tree trunk. Lucas looped the safety line around it and secured it with a carabiner. "This is as far as we go," he told Rex quietly, stroking the dog's neck. "See that car? We need you to go there." He pointed, though the gesture felt almost futile in the driving rain and poor visibility. Yet Rex seemed to understand. His ears pivoted toward the faint metallic glint of the car's underside. Lucas let out some slack on the rope attached to Rex's harness. "Go," he whispered, and Rex did. With remarkable sure-footedness, the German shepherd crept along the muddy slope, nails scraping for traction. A small landslide of pebbles and dirt rolled past him, but he pressed on. Lucas and Mike watched, breath held, as Rex navigated around larger chunks of debris. Occasionally, the dog tested a step, then recoiled, as if sensing instability. Step by step, he got closer to the car. Finally, Rex reached the battered vehicle. The front end was lodged against a tree trunk, the windshield smashed. Through the cracked window, he could see movement. A soft, whimpering sound reached his ears. Rex nosed around the side of the car, letting out a bark. Inside, a woman's frightened face appeared in the shattered window. She gasped when she saw the dog. "Help us!" she cried, voice hoarse. Two children were in the back seat, one of them sobbing, the other ominously still. Rex barked again, wagging his tail slightly to reassure them. The woman noticed the small medical pouch and flashlight strapped to his harness. With trembling hands, she reached out, unzipped the pouch and took them. She flicked on the flashlight, shining it into the back seat where her children sat. A faint moan came from the older child, who had a gash on her forehead. The younger one was unconscious, seatbelt still holding them in place. Meanwhile, Lucas felt the rope go taut, signaling Rex had made contact with the car. Mike radioed up to the rest of the rescue team, and the next step commenced, lowering more lines, anchors, and support. Rex stood vigil, occasionally barking, as the rescue workers rigged up a pulley system to try hauling the car, or at least extracting the family. Suddenly, the slope shifted with a groan. A fresh chunk of earth gave way behind the car, sending debris tumbling into the gully below. Everyone tensed. Rex, ears flattened, tried to scramble for more solid footing, but the angle was precarious. The mother in the car screamed as the vehicle lurched, creaking ominously. Lucas, adrenaline surging, shouted into his radio for them to hurry. Firefighters at the top anchored a heavy rope around a sturdy truck, preparing for a last-ditch attempt to stabilize the car. One miscalculation and the vehicle could tumble deeper, likely killing everyone inside. Rex whined, glancing back at Lucas as if asking for help. The tension in the line threatened to jerk him off balance. Lucas made a snap decision. "I'm going down farther," he told Mike. "It's too risky," Mike warned, but Lucas unlatched from the tree and tested the slope. Mud sucked at his feet. He tried to keep a low center of gravity as he inched closer, rope pressed taut around his waist. With each step, his heartbeat thundered in his ears. When he finally reached Rex, Lucas clung to a twisted piece of guardrail jutting from the muck. The car was groaning under the strain, the mother inside cradling her unconscious child. "Take the older one," she sobbed, pushing the small frame toward the broken window. Lucas nodded, bracing himself. He reached through the shattered window, glass scraping his arms, and pulled the older child out. Rex, as if understanding, helped steady the child by gently nudging them with his muzzle. Carefully, Lucas strapped the child into a harness he'd carried down. Then he whistled to Rex, who made his way back up the slope as Lucas guided the child behind him. At the top, Mike reached down, helping haul the child onto a makeshift ledge. Time was running out. Another rumble of shifting earth signaled imminent danger. The car's rear end sank another inch. "We have to move them all now," Lucas roared. In that moment, the mother realized the slope might collapse completely before she and her unconscious younger child were freed. Her panicked eyes fell on Rex, then on Lucas. She made a desperate choice. "Take my baby first," she screamed, tears pouring down her face. Lucas nodded, sliding back down. The mother unbuckled the child, trying to pass them through the broken window. Suddenly, the slope gave a violent tremor. The mother lost her grip, and the child slipped from her hands, sliding across the hood of the car. Lucas lunged, snagging the child before they tumbled into the gully, but the shift caused Lucas to lose his footing. He slid sideways, boots skidding through mud. For a terrifying second, he dangled from the harness. The child clutched to his chest. "I got you," came Mike's voice, echoing over the chaos. Lucas gasped, heart hammering, as the rope around his waist jerked him back to precarious stability. Rex barked frantically from above, wanting to help but unsure how. Carefully, Lucas managed to secure the smaller child in the harness. The mother watched in horror from inside the car as the rescue line tightened. Lucas signaled for them to pull the child up. With each inch, the child rose away from the car. The lines groaned under the strain. Finally, Mike and the top crew grabbed the child, laying them gently on a stretcher. A paramedic rushed in, checking for vital signs. Exhausted, Lucas turned back to the mother. She was pinned by the driver's seat, her leg likely broken or wedged. "It's okay," he called. "One more trip, I'm coming." But the ground had other plans. Another quake-like shift rattled the slope. An entire section of mud cascaded into the gully, sending the rear of the car downward. The mother screamed. Rex howled from above, pacing anxiously. Time froze for a single moment. Lucas realized the car was about to go over. He had seconds, maybe less. Without thinking, he crawled onto the trunk, hooking another harness line. The mother reached out through the shattered window, eyes wide with terror. "Please," she cried. Lucas yanked on the harness, urging the firefighters above to hold fast. Then, with a burst of adrenaline, he smashed the rest of the glass with the crowbar. Mud splattered everywhere. He reached in, hooking the harness to the mother's torso. She bit back a scream as pain shot through her trapped leg. "I can't move," she sobbed. "You have to," Lucas urged, voice choked with desperation. "On 3, 1, 2. A final deafening crack tore through the air. The car lurched, sliding fully off the ledge. Lucas clung to the harness, pulling with every ounce of strength. The mother's leg, pinned by a piece of crushed metal, finally tore free, drawing blood and a guttural scream. They fell sideways into the muck as the vehicle plummeted below with a sickening crash. For a breathless instant, Lucas wasn't sure if they were saved or falling. Pain seared his shoulder as the harness yanked them both, halting their momentum. Mud cascaded around them. The mother whimpered in agony. Above, the firefighters strained on the rope. Rex barked incessantly, wanting to jump in but forced to stay put. Slowly, painfully, they were hauled up the slope, inch by inch. It felt like an eternity. At last, Mike's outstretched hand grabbed Lucas's wrist, pulling them to relative safety. Another pair of hands helped the mother onto a stretcher. Her breath came in ragged sobs, but she was alive. Rex immediately rushed to Lucas, whining, licking his face. Lucas, heart pounding, embraced the shepherd. "Good boy," he whispered hoarsely. "Good boy." Rescue workers swarmed the site, carrying the mother and her children to the triage area. A wave of relief swept through them. All three were alive, though battered. The entire operation had teetered on the brink of tragedy. Now, the mother clung to her children, whispering words of comfort. Bailey ran to Lucas, tears streaming. "Dad!" she cried, throwing her arms around him, mindful of his injuries. Then she laughed through her tears, hugging Rex too. "You did it!" A hush fell as the crowd took in the remains of the car, crushed at the bottom of the gully. Without Rex's agility delivering that first line and Lucas's courage, the outcome would have been far worse. In the eyes of everyone there, a German shepherd had once again proved himself a hero, along with the retired firefighter who risked life and limb. Back home in Lucas's cozy living room, a bandaged and exhausted Lucas sank into the couch. Bailey sat beside him, a mug of steaming tea in her hands. Rex lay at Lucas's feet, resting his chin on one bandaged ankle. They were all exhausted from the landslide rescue, but their hearts carried a quiet pride, and more importantly, a deep sense of gratitude. The local news had covered the dramatic event, naming Lucas and Rex as heroes. Neighbors dropped by with food, cards, and well wishes. The mother and her children, still in the hospital, sent a tearful video message thanking them for saving their lives. Each day, the bruises faded a bit more, and the memory of the perilous rescue became a story shared around town, a testament to courage and loyalty. For Rex, who had once been abandoned by the people he loved most, this new life felt almost unbelievable. He had a warm bed in the corner of Lucas's home. Daily walks through the scenic back roads, a yard full of interesting scents, and, most importantly, a family who cherished him. At night, Bailey would curl up beside him, reading stories aloud or simply whispering her thoughts about school and friends. Rex would listen, content. Though the scars of betrayal didn't vanish overnight, Rex found redemption in every trusting glance from Lucas and Bailey. In turn, they learned how remarkable unconditional love could be, especially from a creature once deemed disposable. On quiet evenings, Lucas often reflected on how Rex had been cast aside by his previous owners. How many more dogs like him were out there, capable of greatness but neglected. It was a sobering thought that fueled Lucas's desire to volunteer with Pinecrest more often, to help dogs find loving homes. That winter, as snow dusted the Vermont landscape, a small ceremony was held at Pinecrest. Timmy's family attended, along with the mother and children rescued from the landslide. Volunteers from the shelter, local firefighters, and townspeople gathered to honor Rex and a few other shelter dogs who had been adopted into remarkable service roles. Rex wore his red Pinecrest hero bandana. Bailey clapped excitedly as Donna stepped forward to give a short speech. Clearing her throat, Donna began, "Many of you know Rex's story. A German shepherd who came to us frightened and heartbroken, abandoned by those he once trusted with all his heart. And yet, in the midst of that pain, Rex never lost his capacity to love, to protect, and to save. He tracked down Timmy in the storm and helped bring a family back from the brink of tragedy during a landslide. He reminds us all that loyalty and bravery live in the heart, no matter how badly it's been hurt in the past." Applause echoed through the chilly air. Timmy grinned, hugging Rex. The mother who survived the landslide gently stroked the dog's neck, tears shining in her eyes. When the ceremony ended, Bailey placed a gentle kiss on Rex's forehead. "You're amazing," she whispered. Rex responded by licking her cheek, tail wagging softly. For Rex, the future shone brighter than he ever imagined. Gone were the days of fences and heartbreak. Now was a time of belonging, purpose, and the unbreakable bond of a family he could trust. Later that night, Lucas and Bailey sat by the fireplace with Rex at their feet. The glow of the flames danced on the walls, and a sense of peace enveloped the room. Looking at her father, Bailey said, "I think about his old owners sometimes, how they just left him." Lucas nodded solemnly. "I do too," he admitted. "But Rex found us, and that's what matters now." Bailey reached down, burying her fingers in Rex's fur. "Yeah," she said softly. "He's right where he's meant to be." Outside, snow drifted lazily, blanketing the world in a hush. Inside, however, life burned bright for a brave dog who once knew abandonment but now understood the warmth of a family's unwavering love. If you found Rex's story of loyalty and redemption inspiring, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more heartwarming tales of courage. Join us as we continue to explore heroic rescues, emotional transformations, and the incredible bond we share with our animal companions. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.